I think we agree that we will go through the tips in reverse order of the speakers who presented in the first part. So we will do Irtasa, Curra, Matila, Mateus, Carolina, and Marco, right? So if you agree, it's now 4. I think we can start. Irtasa, do you want to share with us your 5 tips for the job transition?
Yes, I have no slides prepared, but I will just talk about the tips that I prepared. I'll start with the first one, which is like show motivation and express excitement for the specific field you're applying for, not just in interviews, but also to yourself. And second is be able to share your conflict resolution skills and possibly an example, because many companies look for a good fit for their company culture beside the tech stack or the technical aspect they're looking for. And third one goes hand in hand with the second one, which is demonstrate that you will be a collaborative member of the team. Because as a student or in academia, you might be more reserved and working on your own project for a long time. But in the industry, you should be able to help others whenever you can, and most importantly, ask for help whenever needed. The next one is regular check-ins with yourself. For example, ask yourself, is this job transition going to be growth-based, depending on my professional work goals? And last but not the least, work on your skills and sharpen those for the jobs you're applying for. For example, many companies require lead code to see your algorithm skills, but also you can do online tutorials in Udemy, Coursera, or just YouTube, which is can be quite helpful as well. And yeah, those are my 5 tips.
Okay, very good. So you mentioned collaboration, which I think is something we learn a lot at CERN in a very collaborative working environment. So I think that's very good. And all the rest also, of course, makes a lot of sense. So I hope people are taking good notes. I think we can move to Khurram and we will do the Q&A at the end.
Yeah, I will just talk here. So yeah, 5 tips. The first one is that search the companies or places where you're applying, look for their vision and what they're trying to do. As an example, when I applied for Danfoss, I went to their website, I saw what they're doing. They posted about some mega trends, some challenges which they are targeting. I saw there was electrification there was digitalization, there was urbanization, climate change solutions, and food, making the food scarcity so challenges. So try to research a bit about the company, and that will give you an idea, and you should be able to link your own vision with the company's vision. So that's the first tip. When you are at the interview as well, you should always let's say, promote yourself as someone who is always willing to learn new things, willing to adapt, because as I mentioned earlier, things change. You have to relearn something. You have to learn sometimes things completely from the scratch. Even you have been working with so much stuff before, but you might need to go down to those paths, and yeah, and that is something which you have to express during the interviews as well. Third tip, be honest. Don't expect that the interviewer is expecting you to know everything, or the company knows you that that you know everything about what the position is hiring for. If you know something, that's very well. If you don't, you should be honest to say, yes, I don't know about this, but given an opportunity, I will be able to learn based on my skills, based on my background. Yeah. You should be able to communicate your experiences during the interviews, what kind of impact those have done for the projects, what you have been working, if you have done certain improvements. Again, questioning or trying to answer the question that the things you have done, why you have done, and what the impacts of that And last, most importantly, try to develop a story that why are you switching from academic to industry. So, and I think that can really help you, because then the interviewer, the company will know the idea that yes, this is the person which is now willing to step up, and if we offer an opportunity, it can be good. Yeah, those were my 5 tips.
Very good, Khurram. I'm taking good notes. I think this is all very useful. So learn the company you're applying for, be willing to learn and adapt because industry changes very much. Be honest, be aware of the impact of your work, and then build this story to explain why you are switching from academia to industry. This can be very helpful. Very good. So now I think we move to Attila.
I also don't have slides. So my first tip is to not give up. I think that was important in my presentation as well. Keep trying, keep learning, keep making yourself better. And don't expect that most interviews will lead to offers. They won't, the vast majority won't. But don't give up. Learn from whatever happened in the previous interview that didn't work and just keep doing it. Don't bother listing publications in your CV. Nobody outside of academia cares. And in fact, when I'm reading a CV, if somebody puts education first, I'm already angry with them because I just don't care. Show me what you've done, unless of course they're a student and they don't have anything else. You know, don't think of just companies. There's also international organizations, especially if you want to stay in Geneva, universities, research institutes, and of course, companies. So there's a variety of places that you could work. And I think a really important one is to not forget about remote work, because these were already trends that were accelerating before, but then COVID really put it into overdrive, which is in a lot of places you can work from wherever you want. And my job has nothing to do with Switzerland. I choose to live there. And you can, maybe after you finish your stint at CERN, you can go back to your home country and work from there. But that does not mean that you need to apply for jobs there. You can find remote work, and depending on the country you live in, that might even be better for both parties, because the company can save on costs depending on where you live, and you can get more money than the local market is willing to bear. So I think that's a really important tip. And my 5th tip is to apply to work for Symmetry Investments, because we're still hiring, and I'll be more than glad to be contacted with CVs.
Perfect. So yeah, I agree with Attila. We are talking about software engineering here, and it's definitely work that can be done remotely. So one should not close that door. And very good tips, don't give up. Very good to know we should not bother about publications and education in the CV. So this is very useful from a person who hires people.
I would still list education, but I would do it after work experience.
The work experience. Very good. So this is a very practical tip. And also, of course, remind not only industry, but as we are in Geneva, the ones who are in Geneva, international organizations, universities in Switzerland, very interesting places to maybe consider working, research institutes. Indeed, this is very, very good. Okay, thanks a lot, Attila. So now I think we move to Mateusz.
So I think the very first part that you need to do, and this is self-assessment, you need to ask yourself a few questions. So first of all, you need to ask yourself, where do you want to work? Do you want to go to big company, to startup, or maybe your own business? All those 3 things have totally different, work style. Those 3 types of, places, they have totally different culture. The work-life balance is totally different. So the size of the company is the first thing. Then you need to ask yourself, where do you want to work? Is it Geneva? Is it Switzerland? Or is it some other country? With remote work, it makes it a bit more complex because, again, you may work somewhere else but be hired somewhere else. But still, this is important for you to make this decision before you leave. So before you leave CERN, you need to know: do you want to stay at CERN area, which is Geneva or Saint-Genis or whatnot, or you want to move? And important part, when do you want to move? Directly after you finish CERN? Do you want to take some short break, or do you want to take long break? This is very important because of immigration reasons. So I'm talking from the perspective of Switzerland because I stay in Switzerland. It's not like, you finish CERN, you can stay for half a year of holidays and then find a job. It doesn't work. Second part about So just for a moment, so people can take screenshot of something, yeah. But effectively all I said. Then the next part, it's about finding the job. So this is kind of in order. So I think the best place is just, people you know. So it can be people you know from CERN, people you know from somewhere, but this is what Attila said. A lot of job openings are not even making to the job boards. If I have a job opening, first I ask people that I know of, and maybe I will fill this opening with someone I know. The benefit of doing this is usually you have friends who work in good companies. Of course, it shortens the process because you are coming through recommendation, and those people also know your skills. So if I'm talking with someone from CERN, I already know what is the expectation bar. I know what kind of skills they already have that other people don't have. But if this doesn't work out, then the next step is, if you know the company, you can just look at the job board of this company. There are two disadvantages of doing this. You need to know the company. So you don't know what you don't know. If you have some company in mind, you just go jobs.whatever.com and you see what's there. The positions there are very often not so specific, which is good and bad. In a lot of places, you will have, big company and opening, which says senior software engineer, and they will write experience in Python. And this is it. You don't know nothing more. So again, either you know someone there to ask, or you just try. And in the very first step of the interview process, you ask recruiter what is the project and so on. So this is something like this. And the last thing that I put here is LinkedIn and recruiters. And I'm saying this from the perspective of Switzerland, because I know in some countries using recruiters is very common. In Switzerland, it's not very common, so that you give your CV to a recruiter and then you work with this person to land you a job. I know it happens, but this is not the default behavior in Switzerland. For this reason, I treat LinkedIn as, it's very nice to find something there, but there is a lot of spam to filter out through. And, this is sad, but this is reality. You will get a lot of stuff via LinkedIn, which you will read and you will be like, this isn't even my profile. So this is it. How to land the job. So some of this stuff, things were already mentioned. So skill-wise, software development, forget certifications. People don't read them. It's like publications. If you have them, it's nice, but they will not land you a job. Whether you have them or not, it's about your skills. You may have all the certificates that exist there, but during the interview, I will ask you about practical stuff. I will not judge you by the certificates you have or you may not have. Important part is to make a decision whether you want to focus your skills on vertical versus horizontal, which means, are you a specialist in a specific field and you go really deep into this area, or do you want to be good from a wide range of applications? Probably good advice for the beginning of your career is to go horizontal, to try to know a lot of things, not very deep. Once you find your area, then go vertical, then go deep there. And the important part is to mix hard skills and soft skills. But as we are talking about certain people, I don't think this is really a problem with soft skills, because doing research, working in academia, it requires a lot of management, even if it's only managing self. So still, it's something important, but I don't think people from CERN are missing this. When it comes to the CV, to your application, focus on the results. It's very nice that you write me, 4 or 5 years I was writing root, but so what was the result? Was it something meaningful? Did you achieve some result, or were you just sitting for 5 years and writing? So try to frame everything into some achievable result. Like, by writing root for 5 years, I calculated X, Y, Z, and as a result, we discovered Higgs, this kind of stuff. So don't just give me hard facts, but make them a story. Don't undervalue your skills. So this is something we're talking in the chat about also. If you were writing Python for 3 years, put it. It doesn't matter you are not an expert in Python after 3 years. No one expects you to be. So just put the stuff that you feel may make sense, but at the same time, don't overvalue. Because if someone asks please rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10, your knowledge of C++, and you tell me 10, then sorry, but if someone is really good from C++, they know they are not 10, because no one is. And once you run the interview, I think this is the easy part. Then, just be yourself, don't lie, and, no tips regarding interview. And the last point, this is a bit about money. And again, this is all from the perspective of Switzerland. It doesn't apply to any other place. First of all, CERN salary, you need to be aware that CERN salaries are aligned around CERN, but they are not aligned to salaries in IT, which means that what you get at CERN is usually lower than what you would get in Switzerland in the software development area. For this reason, this is not really a bargain chip. So you cannot tell to some company, please give me higher offer because I work at CERN now and I make this, because it's not a point. Of course, living in France offsets it, but be aware that there are not a lot of places in Switzerland when you can have this benefit. You know, if you live in Basel, if you work in Basel, okay, you may do shopping in Germany, you may do shopping in France. If you live in Geneva, if you work in Geneva, you may live in Ferney, you may do shopping in France and all this stuff, it offsets it. But if you look purely from the perspective of Switzerland, it's not a bargain point. But then the question comes, so how much should I ask for? Ask people, this is it. There are websites like, Glassdoor, Levels, FYI, and all the other stuff. You can look at the offers because sometimes they are ranges, but still the best source of, this knowledge are just people. If you have a friend working in some area, tell them, I'm applying for this position and I want to ask them X, what do you think? And you may hear the answer, no, you're asking way too much, or you are asking too little. So this is it. And when it comes to the offer, if you're a candidate and the company already gives you the offer, it's not like you will lose this offer by asking for 10% more. This is all part of the negotiation game. So just ask for more. And, in the worst case, of course, unless you ask the recruiter to double the salary, you will just hear, no, sorry, we cannot bump it by 20%. We can bump it by 5%. Anyway, win-win. Company gets you, and you get a bit more than you got at the very beginning. So this is kind of it. But again, all I said, it applies to Switzerland. Take it with a grain of salt in rest of Europe. Definitely don't apply it to US because the rules are way different there. So this is from my side.
Very good, Mateusz. I think you gave a fantastic checklist. I hope people can bookmark this. I think it's very useful. It can help people to plan the recruitment process, right? Asking these questions. So which type of company, where do you want to work, when, etc. And I think there were also some useful tips. Also regarding certifications, I see some comments in the chat. Maybe it's good to know a little bit more about the company you are applying for, whether certifications are something they value or not. So people maybe don't need to worry so much. And then networking, again, you mentioned, very important. Self-confidence, we see people hesitating a little bit, but by being already programmers at CERN, we should already open many doors. And I think the salary tips you mentioned also very useful for the negotiation. So I hope people took good note of all this. Okay, so I think now we move to Carolina.
So I think the first thing to look for is what type of company do you want to work for and what are the values in that company. So when you're applying for a job, I will research the company and see if you line up with their values. And most companies right now, they publish that. I know for experience that Amazon, Google, and Meta, and some other Department of Defense contracted companies, they have it on their website, they highlight it, and they even interview on your view of their own values. It's just like part of the process now. They want to make sure that you are a good fit for the company culture. The other question is, do you want to go for the private sector or do you prefer to stay in the research? The research environment has different type of challenges, and the salaries are typically a little bit lower than the private sector. But again, it's like it's a personal decision, and you have to define what kind of like work-life balance do you want to have with it, and where do you see yourself best fit and identify yourself with. I will also highlight your personal skills during the interview, because if you get to pass through like the people in the room and you get to connect with them, that gives an added value during your interview. If you can connect with your interviewers, it makes the pressure a lot lower. It makes it more of a conversation at the same level instead of like you being grilled during a job interview. I will research a lot the cost of living. This is, again, like, it depends if you want to stay in Switzerland, you want to move outside of Switzerland, you want to go to a different country, you want to go back to your home country. And when I say cost of living, it doesn't mean just rent, but it's like how much it will cost to get transportation there, how much it will cost one day if you want to have a family there, how much does daycare costs, what are the situations that you have around you that will increase your cost of living someday, and how can you set yourself at the right level when you're starting for that. And then again, I think be yourself, be through the interview is the best that you can do for yourself, because the best job is the one that you enjoy doing, and you want to enjoy the team that is part of your daily life, right? You're gonna talk to the people in your team more than your family sometimes. So those are my tips.
Thanks a lot, Carolina. I think we got another set of very useful tips. I think it is important to make those questions about the values of the company, and it's very interesting to know that companies want to check whether you are aligned with their culture. So this is something that participants may want to take into account. And I think because of your experience of moving to the US, what you mentioned about understanding a little bit more the cost of living, also with a more longer term perspective, it's definitely also very useful to take into account. Very good. So I think we can move to the last person, which is Marco.
So I have premises here. This is my personal based on my personal experience. So I hope no one gets offended or anything. So I'll start with the first question that you should ask yourself is when to change job. And again, my experience has been that when you stop learning, when you stop being motivated, it's about time to look for a move. There is always a risk. You moving from a secure position to probation and a new environment, but the price to pay when you stay in a place that doesn't drive you, doesn't motivate you, is too high to pay. So signs of this are you're not keen on going to the office or to connect and talk to your colleagues. You don't remember learning something new. And you're not seeing any progression in terms of what you could do, what you couldn't do before and you can do now. So when you're in that, and I've been there a few times, when you're in that position, my suggestion is just move on. Obviously, family and other constraints can prevent you, but in general, if you can, that's an healthy move. And when you decide to move, where should you move? I think one, again, personal experience, and it's probably biased towards the UK, you should look for healthy culture in the company you're moving. Because as Carolina said, you're going to spend more time with your colleagues and with your family, potentially. So what are good signs are the interview process itself is a way in which you can experience for a few hours, half a day, the company itself. So if the interviewers are kind, they give you time, they make you feel as relaxed as possible. If you can talk to people that are not just that are relatively high up in the hierarchy, in the org chart. If the HR team is replying to your questions without waiting every time you send a request, having to wait for a week, those are normally healthy signs. The opposite will tell you that something is off. If they interview you for forever, if they keep adding unplanned phases in the interview step, if they're not clear about your remit, your responsibilities, either it's a really small company and you have to give them some slack, or clearly something is not working there. So again, thinking about how things that I experienced as well, what gaps did I find in when I moved out of academia into industrial and professional life. I was one of those PhD students doing 10 projects at the time, so I didn't have the boring bit. So I did honestly experience being bored when I moved to industry in the wrong place. So you, depending on your previous history, you need to be probably, sorry, the connection was dropping. So moving out of academia was challenging because there was no supervisor. So your manager is not your mentor, is someone that is half of their job is to check that you are productive as well. So you kind of lose that safety net a bit, but you gain a broader network of colleagues that can share your experience. So for some groups, when you have a really strong mentor and a professor that is following you, that's a big change I noticed with some people. And the other thing is that you have to set your own pace. And while in academia, you're driven sometimes by like conferences and research. So in this case, you are more, you are free to follow the everything that moves, and you are much better off. I think the one other thing that in my transition from academia to industry, and is my penultimate tip, the biggest mistake I make was to not keep up enough with my connections in academia. I still have some links, but I didn't do such a good job in keeping up with networking with my old colleagues, and this is becoming now something that I wish I had done, because I will have a broader network for finding people to employ or finding new opportunities. So when you move from academia to industry, don't close the chapter. Try to keep the connections open with people so you can talk to them. And the last one, that is, I had the pleasure of trying startup, large scale, and consultancy. So I can give you the kind of the spot the differences type of summary. So, and this might guide your choice. So if you, when you are, the main difference between startup and large scale company is this, is you, in a large scale company, you will have a more clear remit, you will know what you have to do. There will be a process around everything. This might prevent you from moving quickly in the company, but this will, on the other side, prevent you from being more overloaded by work, or being troubled with like choices. The bright side of being in a smaller company is that you have the opportunity to shine and carve your role out of carve a bigger role that you will have in a big company. Salaries might be aligned, might not be. So you might have less money in a small company, and they might give you stock options or shares that will be something that you will kind of balance out a lower salary. Particularly like deep growing technologies might actually prove on the long run to be more lucrative than staying in big corporate companies. Consulting is a different beast altogether, because you are working for is more exciting and dynamic than being at least in a big corporate company, because you will have multiple clients to work for and work with. On paper, you might be exciting to travel and meet clients, etc. The reality of it is that you will be your own manager in terms of time and committing to work, and there is a pressure for you to always be productive and generating revenue for the company. So things to consider: you will have more excitement, you might have to work longer hours, you might have to travel more. I think those are my 5 tips.
Very good, Marco. I think the last tip on the difference between a startup and big companies probably deserves a session of its own. So maybe a request for the alumni team to consider organizing something like that. And I think you mentioned very relevant questions that one has to answer, to ask themselves, right, when looking for a job, the moment to change, and also the healthy culture, very important. So it's good what you mentioned, that maybe already the interview process can give you some hints, and afterwards, of course, you're going to spend a lot of time in that company, so it's worth see how you feel after the interview process. And keeping your former links with academia, of course. So hopefully, as Rachel posted in the chat, the alumni network at CERN can help her with that. Okay, so very useful tips, I think, from all of the speakers. Maybe we can go to the last round of Q&A. There are a few more questions there. So, okay, the first question for the people who still hesitate to go to industry. Do you miss academia at any point while working in industry? What do you say? Somebody
Not at any point.
Attila has no regrets to move to industry. I think all of you mentioned very positive things. So, Khurram?
Yeah, no regrets. I think
Regrets. So people should not be afraid of making that move. It can be a very rewarding experience. Marco?
I do miss CERN, but I don't miss academia.
Mm.
No, sorry, he's not trying to grace everyone, but it was really good time there. So I miss that.
That's very good, no? Right? I mean, you can miss some past moments of your life, and it's yeah. Mateusz?
Yes, so I agree on exactly what Marco said. So missing CERN and missing academia are completely different things, and you cannot put it together on the same page. I think I will already start answering one of the other questions, but from my perspective, I moved, when I left CERN, so I left Geneva for another city. I left CERN, like, academic environment, to big company. So it was a huge change. So I was missing CERN, but not for the sake of, I miss working in academia, but for the culture, for the atmosphere. So probably try to also assess how big change are you making at once, because your life will change. And, of course, it's always easier to make a few small steps. If I look from the time perspective, probably if you ask me what would I have done differently, I would leave CERN without leaving the area. And then I would leave the area and, I would be already in the industry. So this is kind of, my personal reflection after what I did, because really CERN has this very specific atmosphere, very positive. And, also one of the things is that when people come at CERN, they all start from the same point. So it's not like they moved to CERN from their country and they already have a network of friends, a lot of social contacts. Everyone in general starts from zero. Maybe if you come with family, then it's a bit different. But in general, when you come to CERN, you start with zero social network and everyone is on the same plate. And this is something unique. It almost never happens anytime later in your life, because then you leave CERN and pick a city, whatever, let's pick a Berlin for the sake of having something that we don't have people from. You move to Berlin and then what? You don't know anyone, your social network is zero, but everyone who is already there in Berlin, they have their life there. So it's not like you join with a bunch of people and you start from the same, from the same place. Even if you are lucky enough that in your company there are more newcomers at the same time, so you start 1st of July in new company in Berlin and there are 10 other people, what is the probability that they moved from totally different place and they are not just Berliners who already live there and just change a company? So try to assess also the social aspect of this change in your life that happens, because I see from my own experience and from experience of other people that this is something that we underestimate and it has bigger impact than everyone can think.
Thanks for those reflections, Mateusz. Very useful, I think. So people should be aware of this. Carolina, I think you wanted to say something?
I couldn't agree more with what they just said. It's, CERN has a different culture and environment. Everybody is kind of like, you're all orphans there that starts from scratch. There is no family around you. You're all missing home. You're missing your friends. And that emphasizes all the relationships that you have around you. Everyone is at the same kind of point. And what CERN does in a very special way is like how you have so many different opportunities to do what the companies call team building, which is terribly done in most places, in my opinion, but it's so gracefully done at CERN, right? You have like a boxing club or the relay ran. I think every one of us has participated to one of those things and has good memories of that. And that's what really tied people together. When you're moving to a different state or country, or I mean, when you're moving in a different location, you're starting with you're starting from zero. And it's not an assumption to make that everybody else in the company is starting from zero. I mean, personally, when I moved from the US, I had nobody, I had no family, I had nothing here to, like, you know, welcome me or spend time, you know. And I was lucky that Slack had hired other junior engineers at the same time, or mid-level, that had a master's degree or whatever, that were moving out of state. And that was the way that we connected, because they moved out of state. So they were also missing family, and they had a little bit of an idea of how hard that was. I mean, most of the time when you're moving to a different country or a different state, you don't have a car right away, right? So like sharing even just like the pain of biking to work every day or things like that, it just really connects you and builds those relationships that are really useful in the work environment. And I think at CERN that's, yeah, at CERN that's very strong.
Very good, Carolina, thanks for that. Iltasa, you also want to say something?
Yeah, me personally, I missed academia a lot when I initially started working, moving towards fixed hours and going to office every day, waking up in the morning, leaving in the evening. So I missed academia then, but since COVID and also in my new job, we're able to work remotely. So we are able to decide our own schedule, our own work-life balance is much better. And also we can work from wherever we want to. So it's much better now, and I enjoyed it very much, and miss less the academia lifestyle.
So you need also like a transition period that you should be aware of that, and eventually, of course, you are going to be happy in the new job, in the new country.
And it needs time to find the perfect job for you, the perfect work-life balance, the company for you, and you need to keep searching.
Very good. So these are very interesting replies from all of you. So I think they can be very useful for the people connected. Let's move on. So currently exploring the industry, I usually get confused. How do I know which position can suit my profile the best? For example, how is software engineering different than software development? Any recommendation where one can just read about the roles to approach industry correctly? So people who may not be so familiar with jargon or with positions in industry, what would you recommend?
There isn't any difference, and a lot of times there's there's a game called Business Bingo in which they say keywords and then you just keep bingo, and it's nonsense. There's no difference. Just read about the role and what they expect you to do, and if that sounds like something you can and want to do, then you're a fit. Well, for that side, of course, there's a culture part, but I mean, if you can recognize the tasks that they say that would be part of the role, then go for it.
Okay. Carolina, you want to add something?
I agree with him about the private sector. I think in the academic sector is more like, I personally transitioned from software developer to software engineer. And it was more about like when you're a software developer at Slack, you're contributing to the final product of the project. When you are a software engineer, you're contributing more to the design and you have more power of decisions. You write more of the specifications of the final product. So you're kind of like leading that product rather than directly contributing. I'm not saying the software developer is a lower scale. I'm just saying that they're just seen a little bit different. And my transition, it was when I was able to prove that I was already doing the job of the software engineer that I needed to transition. But they're pretty much interchangeable everywhere else. It's really how well you fit with the position that you're applying for.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Khurram?
Yeah, I can add something. In Finland, actually, whenever there is a job advertisement, there is a contact and name of a recruiter or a hiring manager, and some specific hours are mentioned along with the days when you can reach out if you have some specific questions as well. I'm not sure, or I don't expect it is the same everywhere, but on the other fact that if you manage to get a name, it can be also good to approach the recruiter or someone on the LinkedIn and try to clarify if you have some confusions about just for the role.
Okay, thanks. Mateusz?
Yeah, so in general, I agree 99% with what Attila said. So this is bingo. Software engineer, software developer in private industry, the same yada yada, doesn't matter. But take one thing into account. If you are applying for a job in country to which you need visa or work permit or something like this, there is a very strong difference between programmer and software developer / engineer. And it will happen if you are not cautious, that if your contract or offer or so says that you are going to be hired as programmer, the authorities are going to reject that. Whereas if you get the offer which says software engineer, software developer, they will approve it. And I don't want to go too deep into immigration law and all this kind of yada yada. Consult your people for that. But in general, I know cases that in some countries, programmer is kind of worse on a grade than an engineer. So, for us, if you tell me you are a programmer and you tell me you're a software developer, not a difference. I know what you do, but legally, this makes a difference. So as a rule of thumb, you should always make sure that no one calls you programmer. Always go for developer or engineer, but try to avoid being classified as programmer. I know it doesn't make sense, but those are rules. This is what happens to people. And, it's very sad that, you go through all the process, you get the contract, you sign the contract, and the day after you have to board the plane, you realize that you cannot because your visa got rejected because of the wording. So, yeah, something to
Here
again.
we have material for yet another session on immigration related issues. So this I didn't know. Very practical to know. Thanks, Mateusz. So, Marco?
Mateusz is 100% right. There is a talent pool. Each country that requires visa has a list of professions, and the title needs to match that. I just want to take more an helicopter view on this and say one thing that is important is look at the job specs. It's particularly pressing for women that there is this problem of wanting to match exactly the specs while men are more just applying is well known as a problem. We are struggling with that. Please look at the job specs. If you think you are a decent or a good match, apply. It's the job of the company of filtering out applications. Don't be shy. It's the only way to have a fair market and close the gender gap.
Very good. Yeah, this is a very good tip as well.
I agree with Marco. I mean, there is not, you're never going to find a candidate that fits the job posting 100% unless it's an internal candidate and the job posting was written for that person. I mean, yeah, if you feel like you have some of the qualifications, I think that's good enough to apply, and then they can be the judges of whether you're the right fit or not.
Exactly. So let them do the filter, don't do the filter yourself. Okay, there's a question on templates for CVs in Switzerland. I think Attila mentioned he's not aware of any. I don't think there's any. Mateusz, who is in Switzerland, is saying no. So just please take into account some of the tips that have been shared here. I think there are many tips on CV writing, and maybe use those, but don't worry about a particular template.
So can I just make one point about Switzerland? So
Yeah.
In general, no template and so on. I know in some countries this is kind of tricky, because in some countries you cannot put, nationality and this kind of yada yada. In Switzerland, I think what you should put is to mark specifically what is your, eligibility for work, because it makes a difference for a company if the candidate applies and already has a right to work in Switzerland or not. So it's not really about putting your passport, your nationality, but let me give you a very specific example. So in Switzerland, if you are a company and you are trying to apply to hire someone from outside of EU, in order to get visa for this person, work permit to be specific, as a company, we need to prove that we didn't find existing candidate already on Swiss market. Not candidate who's Swiss citizen, but candidate who's already in Switzerland. So if you apply, for example, from US, and I want to hire you, I need to prove to the office that I interviewed enough people locally, none of them matched, and then I want to proceed with you. And in some cases, there are companies who just say, this is too difficult process for us. We don't bother. We will just try to find, someone on the local market. So not to waste anyone's time, it's probably easier if you make it clear to the recruiter at the beginning. Does the company need to sponsor your work permit? Or do you already have work permit? So that, so there are clear expectations, because sometimes, it creates a confusion, because till the very end, we think that, yeah, if you are applying, then you have all this settled. And at the very, very end, we realize that you cannot come because, you don't have permit, and now the whole process needs to be done. I think in general, for the big companies, it's never a problem, because big companies have huge HR departments which did it on a daily basis. But for small companies, someone needs to do it. I see already a question, and this very important question: does working at CERN makes you present on the Swiss market? The answer is no. How surprising it may be, no. Doesn't matter if you live in Switzerland or in France. Even if you live in Switzerland and work at CERN, from the perspective of the work and immigration law, you are not present on the Swiss market. So yeah, this is one of the difficult thing for people from outside of EU who are at CERN. They live in Geneva. They still need to apply for the permit, get to the quotas, and all that. So again, consult your immigration lawyer. Don't listen to random guy from the internet.
Yeah. Attila, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, you're not present in the Swiss market, but if you are EU citizen, after they've exhausted that pool, then they will look at you first before, say, somebody from the US. And as for big companies having HR departments, you'd think that, but after 3 months of asking me what permit I had, and after telling them 3 times that I don't have one, you people said you'd sort it out for me. I had to do it. So. And I didn't have a permit before. I'm just lucky enough to have a Portuguese passport, so that's how I got in.
Yeah, you shared a lot of tips related to this, so I guess we can conclude that people should really understand very well the laws, what the type of job permits that are needed, and so on, to avoid any surprises. Okay, there's a question about life-work balance. I think it has been already answered by some of you. So how is the life-work balance in your current job? I don't know if somebody else wants to add something else.
Sure, it depends on the company. Sure, it depends on the company. It depends on a lot of things. I mean, somebody mentioned that they had better work-life balance now that they're in private sector than at CERN, but I didn't, just because I didn't work evenings at CERN either, because why would I?
Carolina?
I think the work-life balance is defined by each person, about like how how do you find your own balance? This is something that it's not an easy thing for a person to define. I mean, I think that there are private companies that they are a little bit better on having office hours. definitely don't have office hours for the job I do. I'm on call 24/7, except the 2 weeks during the winter shutdown. So it's extremely taxing sometimes. I don't know, I think,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a great work-life balance when I was at CERN either, because I was finishing my master degree. I was flying back to Rome to do my final exams for the second half of my second year of master. And so I would stay up until like 2 a.m. to finish up my projects for school and study, and then work for the technical student project to be successful and be marketable. And then when I moved to Slack, I had a lot of freedom. I decided to spend it into work to prove myself, but then it also created a little bit of an expectations of how much I can do. And sometimes that is hard to scale it back. Now that I have kids, it's a little bit harder to manage it all.
Okay, Khurram?
Yeah, I think this is the first thing which I mentioned, that I enjoyed the work-life balance when I moved to here, Finland. I think it also depends on the culture of the company and, of course, the country as well. What I can say that in my case, what I feel that we are being asked at the company is that how is your work life? So your immediate supervisor is, or my immediate supervisor, we have regular discussions at how is your workload and how is your work-life balance is going on. So the emphasis is done there. So yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, it also depends on you, because since now it's a remote work, you can, if you want, you can just spend all your day with sitting and trying to figure out some problem from the work. So it's a bit difficult in that way. So it depends on you as well, but also it varies a lot from the culture and the place where you are. And some companies even have regulations that you're not allowed to do overtime, and if there's a need, they have to prove that why there's a need for the overtime, and does this person have something else to do, family stuff. So in my opinion, those things are pretty much present here. So that's why I enjoyed that quite much.
Marco?
Yeah, yes, I agree. And I like to add that it's important that you find a place that respects, that gives you space for planned and unplanned changes in your life, like parental leave, or if you have any health or mental health issue. And like, this is normally not is not the 9 to 5 type of discussion. So you can be in a place that is in which you work 10 hours a day, but then when you need the time off, you get it. And there are places in which you do 9 to 5 and they will tell you, no, the contract is this, you can't take time off. So don't just, it's up to you to decide how much you want to work, how long are the hours that you want to put. But it's important that you have a safety net around stopping when you need to stop, or slowing down when you need to slow down. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Have a look at the full package, see if there is what's covered in that regard, what type of medical insurance you got, what type of time off you can get, if there are sabbaticals, etc. That's probably important as how many hours you should be, how many FaceTime hours should you have in your contract as well.
Okay, I think you all gave very sensible recommendations, and as you said, it has to do a lot with the values of the company and the culture of the company, so people really need to understand that very well and applying. Okay, so 2 more questions and we can finish. Did you apply to positions via direct job advertisement, networking at conferences, recruiters, LinkedIn? I think we have already replied to this. I think you all given a lot of tips on this. Networking very important. I don't know if you want to mention anything else. It's been covered basically, I think.
I think I said this before, but just try to know the people try to know the team that you will be part of and who your manager is gonna be and how well does personality fit with you, and that's gonna make the smoother transition. Because if you have a manager that doesn't believe in you and you have to constantly prove yourself, it's never gonna be a good experience.
Okay, so last question, how much personal stuff would you put on a CV? Picture, age, etc.
Just don't. CV is not, a place to put your picture. There are, Tinder stuff for do, and but not a CV.
Okay, no picture.
I mean,
you
can put your hobbies, like, if you like to run or paint, those are like things like you're creative or you're determined. They can see that how that can apply into the different things. Or if you're like a ham radio licensed person or things like that, but it just gives you an insight. It just gives an insight to the personality. I wouldn't like emphasize with pictures and stuff like that. Just like he said, you can open your Facebook profile or whatever if you really want them to know more about you.
Okay, Khurram?
Yeah, well, it's a bit difficult to say that what to put or what not to put from a personal point of view. But if a manager is hiring for you for a team, at least, and they have no idea what kind of person is, he needs to know what kind of a person as well. Of course, what do you know about the work? That is one part of it, but during the hiring, they will be looking at how you will fit and gel with the team, your personality and those kind of things. So anything which can give those kind of ideas can help. Of course, he's going to, the recruiter or the manager, whoever is going to go on LinkedIn and try to see from there as well, or other social media platform as well. But I think they should be given a chance to know the person as well.
To know a little bit better. Okay. Okay, so I think we are done with all the questions. Thanks a lot to all the speakers. I think it's been super interesting. I personally learned a lot of things, so I think the people in the audience must have found this super useful. You were all very engaged and very inspiring. And I think we covered many things. I took some notes. So really from how to prepare interviews, we went into CV tips, what it is to go to industry, and I think you were all very positive, so this is very good. We have to also touch on salaries, how to negotiate salaries, what to expect, even about immigration, job permits, and of course, the fact that networking is important, that soft skills are important, that people should have self-confidence on their coding skills. So I think it was really useful and very insightful. So, and actually many people stayed really until the end. So it really is a proof that it was super interesting. Rachel or Simona?
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to echo what Maria's just said. Fantastic, great, extremely pragmatic and practical. So I hope that everybody's learned a lot from our amazing CERN alumni. And I was particularly happy being the current chair of the CERN Club's coordinating committee and president of the CERN Fitness Club for many years. I'm so happy to hear that our alumni have fond memories of all the extracurricular activities that are organized at CERN. And that's really what makes one of the things that makes coming to CERN special. And also, I think the CERN relay race was mentioned. So last year, we made it possible for CERN alumni to take part in a virtual CERN relay race. I think, Khurram, if I'm not mistaken, you took part, if I may be mistaken. But so this is something we're also going to be doing this year. So all the panelists, we're looking to maybe create a team with you in the relay race. But just before we're going to move to the breakout rooms, I think a lot of you will have questions that you want to ask the participants individually. You'll have a breakout room for each of the speakers, and you'll be able to move between the different breakout rooms. One thing I wanted to do very briefly was just say a few words about the CERN Alumni Network, because I think there may be some people that are joining us today who aren't yet members of the Alumni Network. And this is a great way, a fantastic tool for people to be able to build their networks and link up with people who are able to provide this really valuable information, people who have a shared CERN experience. So very quickly, we launched in 2017. There are now over 8,600 members. The reason why we set up the Alumni Network is to demonstrate the positive impact of an experience at CERN to our member states. It's to enable people to stay connected, like Marco was saying, stay connected with academia, stay connected with the people at CERN. to build a network of ambassadors to support CERN in its future mission, or its mission and its future endeavors, and also importantly to support those who are in their early careers. So that's the reason why we set up the network. And very quickly, I'm going to go to alumni.cern. For those people who haven't joined, or maybe those people who have joined but are not sure exactly what you would gain from being a member of the alumni network. So we mentioned networking. I know LinkedIn was mentioned quite a few times, and I also heard, I think Matthias mentioned that there's sometimes you have to work through the spam. One of the things that I would say to you about being a member of the alumni network, you can be sure that every single person who is in this network is somebody who currently works at CERN as a member of personnel or has worked at CERN. From our experience, we've seen that there are people who say they work at CERN on LinkedIn, and it's absolutely not true. So anyway, here you've got, when you first connect, you have the community map. So here you can search for people. If we go to more fields, so I'm going to do this live. So let's hope that it doesn't mess up. If I put software, for example, computer software, just an example, and we say we want to look for CERN alumni, you're interested in industries with computer software. Here you can carry out a search of all those alumni across the globe who have that experience and see who pops up on top. This is great. So you can use this as a very powerful tool to be able to connect and build your network. As soon as you see somebody you're interested in speaking with, you can connect with them, you can look at their profile. So one important thing is when you join the alumni network, please do as Matthias has done and our other alumni who are here today, and really complete your experience and your education and give us something you're about, so people know about your profile. It will really enhance your networking. You've got the means to be able to reach out to them immediately via their email, or you can also send them an internal message, which also pops up now as push notifications if you have the CERN alumni app. When you have your profile, I'm going to quickly show you mine. As I said, it's super important to keep it up to date. So you actually have this button where you can update your profile from LinkedIn if you wish. Now, another thing which is important, if you're thinking of going elsewhere, you can either look for alumni via the community map, because there's perhaps alumni in that location, but also we have groups, so regional groups. So you may find it interesting to connect with a regional group in a region that you're planning on going to. You may also want to set up your own regional group. So if you want to do that, then contact us. We also have under career, we've got a jobs board. So on the jobs board, we either have positions which are posted by CERN alumni, so they post their opportunities immediately on the platform, or you can find that there are companies that will also post opportunities. So here there are companies who are aware of the skills and talents that are developed at CERN, and they have the means to be able to publish their jobs. The first time they post, we make sure that they're in line with CERN's ethical guidelines. And if that's the case, then their opportunities are published, and you can find them all here. We also have a mentoring module. So in the same way that we had our great alumni today who shared their experience, you can find a pool of alumni who are very keen also to share their experiences with you if you so wish to set up a mentoring relationship with them. We also have our events page. And on our events page, you'll find, so today's event, moving out of academia to software engineering. We have an upcoming joint event with PSI on how to sell your skills if you're going from research to industry. And then we have something which is R1 Talks, where our alumni can talk about a specific topic, either the job that they're in, etc. And then we have there's a participant that came today, an alumnus who works for this company called Pilatus Aircraft. So we do something which is called a virtual company showroom. So their companies have half an hour to talk about their companies, the activities and the types of profile they're looking to recruit. And then we have 30 minutes Q&A with the alumni working there, if there are alumni, and also often with the technical contact and also the people from HR. So you have a very safe environment where you can make this first connection with the company you might be interested in working with. So I'm not going to take up any more time, so I'm sure you're all dying to get into the breakout rooms and carry on asking your questions. Thank you, Simone, as well, for sharing the link. A huge thank you to all of our panelists. A very big thank you also to Maria for being such a great moderator, and also to Simona and Anna for organizing this event.